Going back to our session, we now have with us Steve Walton, Stephanie Parisi, and Grace Bizel. Yeah, okay. So Grace, Steve is not here. You have one. He is coming. I'm missing one. Also, Brett out. Yes, sorry. And so Steve Walton, Stephanie Parisi, Grace Bizel, and Brad out from respectively from Goizueta Business School, Emory University, Atlanta, and Brad out from Delta Tech Ops Atlanta as well. And they are presenting a contribution entitled Emory and Delta using VR to scale an unscalable learning experience. And this session will showcase the development of an interactive virtual reality tour developed by Goizueta Business School in partnership with Delta Technical Operations, Tech Ops. And the presentation and demonstration will share with participants why and how the project was developed, including how it started, contributor roles, filming and VR creation, internal and external collaboration, instructional design, iterations, and impact on teaching and learning. The team will share the technology and tools that supported the development of this project, as well as the lessons learned. Demonstration of the tour will be given to, along with the opportunity for participants to experience the tour using a VR headset. So great, we're going to answer all the questions that this morning, raised in the audience. So that's very good, and thank you. So the floor is yours, I think. Yeah, the time is 1 hour, and then, if we go over,
Yeah.
I would.
Thanks. We have a little setting up to do with some of our technology. It'll take us 5 minutes. So if you want to take a quick break and pop back, we'll be ready in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Try again.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, y'all.
Yeah, it's working.
We awake? It's 4:15. Afternoon crowd. Did you get your coffee? Yeah? Okay. Lively. Okay, well, welcome to Emory and Delta using VR to scale an unscalable learning experience. Thank you for joining this afternoon, both in person and online. My name is Stephanie Parisi. I am Associate Director of Instructional Design for Goizueta Business School at Emory University. We're based out of Atlanta in the US. Unfortunately today, Professor Steve Walton could not be here. He had a last-minute emergency he had to take care of. Everything's good. He sends his best wishes to everyone. So I will be both Steve and myself. I have his notes, don't worry. So we're going to get started. So to give you a brief introduction, and this was Steve's part, he is professor in the practice of information systems and operations management for the business school. Goizueta has had a relationship with Delta for many, many years. We frequently have leaders from Delta in our executive MBA and evening MBA programs. And we've also partnered to launch the Delta Leadership Hub, a learning space in the school. So over a decade ago, Professor Walton had visited Delta Tech Ops, which is again located in Atlanta. After his first visit, he knew he wanted to take his students here. He teaches a course called Process and Systems Management, which introduces how to analyze, improve, and ultimately innovate business models using processes, data analytics, and technology. As you learn more, you will see what a great fit this is. And because this, you will see what a great fit this is because it applies his course content in a very meaningful way. And not just that, it applies it in a zero failure environment. And so when Brett comes up here in a moment, you'll see what Delta Tech Ops is all about. So Professor Walton teaches many sections of his course across many of our programs, and Delta has been incredibly accommodating over the years, hosting groups as large as 70 students at a time, with a TSA mandated requirement of one Delta guide for every 5 students. This is when it became clear that we had an activity that we might want to take to scale, but was inherently unscalable. The question was how. So if you came to the Emory presentation earlier today with my colleagues, you learned a little bit more about our experimentation zone. It's one of our initiatives to support a culture of innovation at the business school that asks our faculty to submit ideas in technology and academic innovation, and Professor Walton was one of them, and this project came out of that as well. The purpose of this project was to explore how virtual reality might be used to scale this unscalable experience. And our goals were and still are to create a virtual tour that shows the unbelievable scale of tech ops, exposes the user to the powerfully positive role of culture in a zero failure environment, and to the process limiting impact of bottlenecks in a working shop and the impact of complexity on operations. So that's kind of like the business terminology of it. I'll share my story. When I went to Tech Ops for the very first time, it's a 2.7 million square foot facility. It is enormous. You step in and you feel very, very small. And you look at these engines, these jet engines, these planes, and you look at all the people working on those things that keep you safe. You stare up into a wheel well, and it's the magnitude and the wow factor of it. That was the challenge. How do you take that experience and translate it into a virtual environment? That's a big ask, because this meant something to our students when they were doing it in person. So this is what we're really, really excited to share with you. I'm going to preface this by saying we have built a prototype, and we'll get into the development and the next steps later. But the flow of the presentation will be, we're going to have Brett come up and share more about Delta Tech Ops. We'll showcase our prototype to you both on a desktop version and have the opportunity to share it on the VR goggles if you would like to try that. We'll share about our team and about the development process. And then we'll share our lessons and next steps and end with a Q&A. And again, if we have more time, then more folks can try the goggles. Okay? So I'm going to introduce Brett if you want to come on up. Thank you. And tell them who you are.
Hi, I'm Brett. I work for Delta Airlines. I think I need to be in front of the mic here. We partner with Emory School of Business to give an overview of the 62 acres we have under one roof that does all maintenance, repair, overhaul, and component module repair for all our aircraft worldwide. And that's over 1,000 aircraft that fly all over the world. And they came in and did something that we didn't have the technology or honestly the expertise that they had. This is what you might see at the world's busiest airport. If you look out the porthole window of the cylindrical tube you're flying in, you might see this. It looks like it's under construction. It's actually a cantilevered structure, so there's no exterior support holding the hangar doors on or up. It's on exterior support. That's what it looks like when you taxi by or when you take off or when you're landing on runway 26 right in Atlanta. Inside is where all the magic happens. This is a short video to show you what takes place under the 62 acres. So as they're working on a technical aspect, any initial questions on what we do and why we do it? Because that's going to lead into where we're going next, how we partnered with Emory School of Business. Good. Everybody knows what we do. Interesting. So I'll give you just a quick background of the evolution over 31 years. I'll try to cover it in about 100 seconds. And I'm one of the technicians that started as a, well, this is my evolution and this is where I'm at now, unfortunately. But it's an incredible company that's focused on its people, its culture, its organization, but ultimately it's about safety. So how many of you have flown on Delta Airlines? Thank you very much. I'll be giving out round trip first class tickets before I leave today. Do you believe that? No. So 31 years, real quick, I'll give just a quick background. I came from a bunch of wing nuts. Me and four brothers grew up involved in aviation. I have a F-14, F-18 Top Gun, the real Top Gun, not Tom Cruise, Squadron Commander Jeff. I have a brother that graduated with an aerospace degree from Virginia Tech, and he flies remote control drones for the Naval Research Lab. I have Matt on the far right, as you look at him. He's in charge of all the energy for the United States Navy, every naval base worldwide. The guy on the other side is Todd. He works for the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. He maps the ocean floor so we can have commerce ships ship and receive information and packages and supply chain every day. And me, I barely finished high school. So I'm in the room with all these highly educated people. All my brothers are highly educated, and I'm more experientially educated. And I'm the one that fixes the airplanes and the jet engines that they fly on worldwide. So that's me, and that's at my dad's military service for his funeral in Arlington National Cemetery. So we all serve in the military one way or another. I used to fly on aircraft that flew all over the world for the military. After that, I loved the whole idea of travel. So I got a job at a major airline, Delta Airlines, loading bags. It's funny the way the company soft shoes titles. I was known as a weight and balance specialist. Oh, wait, it gets better. I went to technical operations. It's a different division where we're responsible for the safety and welfare of all the parts and equipment and airframes worldwide. And I became a drag reduction engineer. Anybody know what that is? I clean the sides of the airplane. That's what I did. From there, I started handing out the tools and the equipment for the technicians to fix and repair and overhaul all the components, all the jet engines, all the airframes. Fell in love with it. Went to the FAA, got my license to be an airframe, power plant, and airframe technician, holding an A&P license with the FAA. Started working on jet engines and specifically thrust reversers. That's what you see right there. That's the loud sound after you land, after the brakes are deployed, and you hear the. That's the only way the airplane stops before it goes off the runway. You're welcome. Then I started working on the jet engines, knowing all the high bypass turbofan engine components of the aircraft, which is just, we're a bunch of kids. It's like working on Legos. We just love what we do. And there's a lot of pride in what we do. And then I started working on advanced composite airframe repairs. And that's what you see here. When we hit birds and geese and even deer and rabbits on the runway, and it hits the plastic, it's a cloth with a two-part epoxy baked in a oven. That's what you see here. We learned how to do that as well. Then I started teaching the mechanics how to do their job, fix and repair the aircraft or the component. Then I got into a leadership role where I'm teaching people how to lead people. By the way, what do you think's easier? Fixing a high bypass turbofan jet engine or fixing a person? Engine. Why do you say that? It is. Why?
Because it doesn't
Yeah, and it doesn't have emotions. Airplane parts are complex, but it's nothing compared to the human. We're a great organization. This is technical operations. 9,000 of us are committed to your safety every time we fly. The company takes good care of us, and they really appreciate what we do. They actually put our names. All 80,000 employees are in the red thank you, and they do this almost every year, thanking the employees for what they do. Ultimately, providing the best, safest, world-class operation you can ever be on. And if I can help you out in any way and getting an upgrade, I will send you to Delta 1-800, call me, okay? Grace, by the way, I want to introduce to you the manager of, no, don't help me, Academic Media Services. Give it up for Grace.
Thank you. I'll tell you guys what I learned from him yesterday. I know if you're here a lot, or really any big city, and you see planes going overhead, you can tell they're Delta from the ground by that blue belly. I didn't know that until yesterday. So if you remember in the video, there was a Google Earth zoom in to Tech Ops. So the background of this image is from Google Earth. And this is, what was it? 6 football fields?
26.
Yeah. So, and the overlay of all the buildings that we covered, captured to put into an online interactive presence that you could tour, and then eventually into a VR environment. And this, it also in that video, if you saw the new test cell, that was one of the highlights that Steve really wanted to capture because it's massive. And we actually got the opportunity to go inside, and the scale of the test cell and of the hangars is something that you couldn't really experience if you did the desktop tour. So I'll show you both, but if anybody would like to do the tour on the headsets, we have 3 of them. You can do this after we're done talking. There's plenty of time. So I'm going to pull up first the desktop version. And do you want me to place Steve? Yeah. Okay. And we'll also get to hear a little bit from Steve Walton.
Yeah, we've got it.
Yeah. So let me, and then will F11 work over here as well? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to try to do this backwards and upside down. It's a little difficult to see, but this is that map. Oh. This is the map over here that you just saw. This is a clickable area, but I'm just going to use this over here. So Brett could tell you probably better than I, especially since I can't see it that well. I think this is the entrance, TOC 1, 2, and 3. So these are the 3 main buildings. And then some specific areas. Sorry, I can't see my mouse very well from here. Thank you. Well, I'm going to enable the audio so we can hear Steve. Bear with me because I may have muted it so we didn't get feedback.
What do you want me to hold the mic for you?
Yeah, or maybe just tell me what you're seeing. Also, unfortunately, I'm on a PC and it's not my native language. This is TOC3, which is where they do, what do you do in TOC3, Brett?
It was a world-class, state-of-the-art paint facility because the demand for maintenance repair over paint has superseded that insourcing revenue stream. So we've converted it to just doing maintenance overhauls for Delta and other airlines.
I don't know why. This is, there we go. I don't know, it's a weird trackpad for me, I'm sorry. Anyway, you can go in here. This is a interview with one of the technicians or mechanics that I'm not going to play just because we don't want to play with the audio. But if you, all throughout the tour, there are links to other parts, right? So we are going to continue to this part inside the goggles. But let me see if I can go back. I'll go inside the new test cell. Is that new test cell? That is? Okay.
Nope, go back up one. There we go.
Okay. There are also a couple of, here we go. Now we're inside the cell. So this doorway is for human height. I don't know if you can really feel the scale on a desktop, but what they do is take those giant jet engines, and this part of this was in the video. They hang them from the ceiling and run them. And do you want to say what you actually do here? You run the engines and then maybe run a load of bees through them to test it, or?
No, this test cell is the largest test cell ever built for a matter of 1 month. And somewhere in the earth they built a bigger one. And when it's capable of testing up to 150,000 pounds of thrust. And unfortunately, when you have an intake and then a thrust of that much power, that much power, it will suck any aircraft or I'm sorry, birds or bees or butterflies. And so we constantly have a cleanup aisle 5 of bugs and insects when we're ingesting that much air at one time.
Okay, so I'm going to switch from the desktop version now. I'm going to show you what this looks like inside the VR with Brett's help. So, where am I here? Yes, okay. I don't know if there's any Mac users in the room feeling my pain. It's not fun.
Backwards and on a PC.
Yeah.
We're very impressed.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was going for. First of all, has anybody in the room used an Oculus Quest or any VR goggles? Yes, you have. A couple people have. 3 people have. Do you have one of your own? Do you use it? No? So a tiny bit of experience. That's why we chose this. So practically speaking, no one's really using this enough to understand what you can do with it. So we're really trying to lower all the barriers to entry to really get here. And a lot of my design choices, let me back up. So I co-manage a 4-person team. And when Steve came to us with this idea, he did not know fully that this was how we wanted to accomplish this. So we know we wanted to alleviate the pain that goes along with taking this many students to Tech Ops for a tour, but we weren't sure how to do this. And we consider, I'm a licensed drone pilot, but flying inside of these facilities is just not feasible. If you fly a drone, you know that GPS doesn't really reach inside of buildings this way. So there's a potential to fly into a $1 billion engine. So the only way to capture this is 360 capture. And once we started there, we needed to work with Stephanie and Steve would work on the design part where Stephanie will go through all of this later. But the actual technical design of this, it needed to be something you could lay hands on before you knew exactly where you wanted to go with it. So if you want to put that on. Yes, yes. Thank you. Yes. You might have to show it where the floor is. Okay. You see the pink arrow? Okay, go there. Yep. Casting. And computer. Yes.
We're putting it on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're connecting.
Casting again?
It looks like you're coming up now. So do you see, does it look like it's thinking?
No, it's waiting for an input. Casting the red arrow or the dice, the apps.
Casting.
Casting. Stop casting or close?
Oh, no, you are casting. Okay, go to apps. Oh, did you close it? Here, let me.
Okay, apps for you.
Whoa.
Seeing the visitor center?
No.
I am.
Do you see a red dot?
I do.
You see the red dot? Okay. Stand by.
I don't want Jack to sneak up on me, okay? I'm in front of the visitor center. With an arrow going in.
Okay, stand by. You're on a hanging tab somewhere. Are you in here? Casting stopped. You see the red dot still?
I don't.
Okay. So press the Oculus button under your thumb, your right thumb. Up on the flat part.
Okay, we'll press it.
Yeah, so go back to, you see the menu?
Yep, resume or quit.
Quit.
I'm at the desert.
Okay. Do you see the menu in front of you?
I do.
Okay, so go back to the pink arrow button.
Arrow,
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
again.
Yep. To computer.
You're showing me, oh, here it comes. Cast now?
Yes.
Okay, cast. Computer,
Yes.
computer, next. Go to
Well, it's coming. There we go. Okay, now go down to the, yeah, you can press the X in the bottom left corner to close out the window.
Okay.
Then go to the chiclet, where the apps are. Yep. 3D Vista.
Got it.
Yep. Yay. Okay, now I'm going to try F11 and hopefully get this full screen. Great. Click on Delta Tech Ops. All right. So now you can see on the screen what he's seeing in his headset. It's just that he's seeing it 360. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Thanks. So there was a Staples truck outside at the time we shot this. Go in the visitor center. And this video we've already watched. That's Steve's introduction. So go on ahead down the hallway and keep going. And this is your entry to TOC1. So you can look around. There's a lot going on, and this is just the very first door of the very first room. It is a massive room. So we laid it out just like you would a tour within Google Maps. Stephanie will talk more about this, but Steve's goals are easier to define once you're in this environment. You can start thinking about the navigation and what the purpose is will help you design the navigation. So if you noticed in his introductory video, he talked about processes, systems, and bottlenecks. Also, full disclosure, I just graduated the MBUC program, so I took Steve's class, and I'm pretty familiar with these concepts and what he was trying to do. I also did that while I was building this. Let's go ahead down next. This is the interview. You won't hear it, so he could play it, but that interview was with the first mechanic. There's several interviews in here, but we're going to go ahead and skip them. If you want to go back to the outside, go ahead. So here we come to a junction. You could go into the engine test cell, but I'm going to send you all the way around to the new engine shop. And this used to be a hangar. It is now an extension of what we were just looking at. So that bright white wall outside of that is the runway that many of you have probably, all of you have spent time on. So if you want to go on and just go outside. There's lots to explore. We're just abbreviating this.
All the engines built in that hangar, Delta doesn't own a single one. Rolls-Royce paid us to work on their engines, and that's why we converted an airframe facility into a jet engine facility. Follow the money.
Yeah. So go on ahead, click that, yeah. And more runway. Keep going, and then this is TOC2. The sun came out a little bit, finally. TOC2 is a massive hangar where you can get, is it 9 tip-to-tip, wing-tip to wing-tip 747s you can get in there?
Wide double aisle aircraft, not 747s, but yeah, we can fit 11 in this hangar.
Okay. So go on inside. And there are more interviews in here, but I'm going to go ahead and skip to the most exciting part. If you go up, not out, but go back inside. Yeah, this is easier when you're standing, but for yeah, right, yeah. Turn all the way back in. Go indoors. Yeah, and then look around and hit up. Yeah.
Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Yes, we're all seeing what you're seeing. There you go. Now you're floating up in the air. So here's another thing that you sort of have to worry about when you're designing VR. A lot of people get motion sickness. So to some of this is very exciting. To some of this, it's very unsettling. And my work partner, Linero, shot this from a cherry picker. So again, I don't know if I've said this enough, but I'm so happy that Delta Airlines was so generous with their time and access. And if it wasn't for the partnership that we have with them, nothing would be possible. So the experimentation that we have is only at the generosity and the good relationship that Steve has had all these years and Emory has had. So we could keep going on, but I'm going to actually pass over to Stephanie. And if anybody wants to explore this environment, please stay around, and I'm happy to share it with you.
Cool. Thank you, Grace. All right. How are we trying to solve?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for your patience as we got that set up. Yeah, that's be perfect.
No, she's going to.
All right, do we have to be done?
You have to have 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Speed through. So going back to the development of this, just to give you a little idea of what our team looked like. So these were the members of both Goizueta team and Delta team. Obviously, Professor Walton served as our subject matter expert, and he was also the project lead on the experimentation zone. Grace and her colleague Linero took the lead on designing and developing the VR. This is very much a lot of work coming out of Grace. Linero did a lot of videography. And myself, as the instructional designer, also served as project manager. A lot of times I'm the middle person communicating between all the parties, translating, what Brett has to say to what Grace needs and what Steve has to say to what Grace needs or what Brett needs. Oh, hi. That's okay. And then our friends at Delta, you've met Brett. We would not know the steps of the tour if it were not for Brett. So he actually helped us walk through and said, hey, this is a stop in the tour. This is where I'd stop and say this. This is really important. We have no idea without him. So he is also a subject matter expert. And then another manager at Delta Tech Ops of training and our liaison, Mark Sandrin, who helped us get a lot of the things we need done. So I also want to mention that this was all done in-house with Goizueta in partnership with Delta Tech Ops. We have not hired any outside vendors. We have used 3D Vista software, but this was one of our first projects of this scale that we have been able to do completely with the members and expertise on our team. So we have a lot of expertise, but we also have done a lot of learning along the way. Is it gonna? No, we're not responding. Help. It's not responding. Thanks. So should I use the clicker or can I use the keyboard? Oh my gosh, so much technology. Okay. All right, so how did we build this? From an instructional design standpoint, any ideas here? All right, hi friends who survived COVID. There were kind of two big buckets for me as the idea. How do we organize all this massive amount of information that students take in during this tour? And then how do we layer instruction on top of that? For me, it kind of turned out to be a rapid prototyping situation where we just dove in. The outline of the important concepts with Steve was really helpful at the beginning, because if we just went in and had no idea, no guidance, this is going to be an overwhelming mess. So when I sat down with Steve, I said, what are the main points that connect with your class? And let's coordinate those with Delta's needs and the tour points. So that's what we did. We made an outline coupled with the tour. And then through that lens, we planned the filming. So that gave kind of a some loose guidance to Grace and Linero before they went to film. Now, when they went to film, they filmed a lot of footage that we had to comb through. Did you want to comment any more about filming? Yes. So twice, 2 visits of filming, 2 full days, right? You were there all day. It's long time. So what we used was a tool called Miro. Has anybody ever heard of Miro? It's a collaborative whiteboard tool. For our planning purposes, I threw the map up there and we kind of mapped out the different points we wanted them to stop at, coupled with the interviews that we were able to gather from the technicians and experts at Delta. And so everywhere there's a red circle, that's a stopping point on the tour. The little green comment boxes, that was communication between me and Steve and Grace and Linero. So this is like a living, breathing document. We've got little Post-it notes with all the names and contributors. And then little notes to the team over here. Like it was just very much, we're gonna massage this until we get something right, that something's looking like a prototype, right? The other tools that we used for this were OneDrive for sharing the footage. And then we did regular check-ins, Zoom, phone calls. We've done a lot of phone calls and in-person visits. So we were regularly in communication. Brett has my phone number and calls me when he needs things, and when I need things, I can call him. It's a very nice relationship we've built with Delta. So those are kind of the main tools we use. So what's next? If this is just a prototype, we've got a ways to go before we deploy this with our students and before we share it outside of Goizueta. So we want to add more instruction onto this tour. You didn't get to see a lot of the points, but when you do click on the interviews, there are instructional components. We're going to add some quiz questions, more interactions, more clickable points. With working with Steve, I'd like to add an instructional guide so that anyone using this inside of Goizueta, outside of Goizueta, will have a teaching guide to accompany this tour. We want to add more video components, maybe refilming some sections at Delta Tech Ops that maybe we didn't get to capture. The technical box is big, so we want to further develop intake instructions. So we had a lot of technology to deal with today, just sharing it with you. We don't always have to cast it up, right? So it's not going to take that long. But when I say intake instructions, that means how do we get the students into the tour and onboarded with an understanding of what they're going to experience. Add additional navigation menu items, more directions, because we're not always going to have a Grace or a Brett to walk us through. We added a mini radar map in the corner, which you did see in the corner of this current version. High-level orientations, and of course, order more VR headsets. We primarily use the Oculus because it's an accessible headset, but we're looking to experiment with other headsets as well. And of course, continue to support our partnership with Delta. Delta has a big commitment to the armed forces, which you can see if you go on that physical tour. We'd like to add in, and then keeping our goals aligned. We want to keep this relationship going. All right. So I'm going to wrap up and bring it over to Q&A. I'm sure you have some questions. And we'll also give you a chance to try the headsets after this. So thanks. Good job.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
How long did it take to make this prototype?
So we started, what, a year ago? Approximately a year ago? Yeah, balancing it with other projects and everybody's schedules. This has been about a year in the making.
Okay, and this is only for the students at the universities, not for internal Delta training. It's
not for what?
Not for internal Delta training. It's
so that is something that we've had in our mind the whole time. So we are going to use it internally currently with our Goizueta students, but we're also sharing this with Delta for their internal training needs.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, don't ask me the hard question.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, I love the map and the tours of the different points. How many tours do you conduct a year? And also, are those all virtual or some in person or a little blended of both?
So they have always been in person.
Okay.
So leading up to the pandemic, we have always taken our students there. And, we've got about 2,000 students at Goizueta, and Steve teaches in every program. So he's taking a lot of students there in person. So the pandemic hit. We were thinking about doing this before that, but it was just another reason to take this virtual, right? So that we can scale it, but also reach a broader audience with this experience. Not everyone's going to be in Atlanta. I think I missed half of your question. Sorry.
I was wondering, do you have some obsolescency program, as if something changes in the technical operations side? Do you have any provisions as how to insert changes in the?
Do you mean from Delta's perspective or from the perspective of the tour, of the VR tour?
From the perspective of the whole experience. If, for example, I don't know, some process changes and.
Right. So.
Because in this kind of material, a problem for us is that it's to establish an obsolescence program that and how to.
Right. So that has to be a consideration during design. during the design planning. Some of it, you have to plan your design around what you can change. So we're not trying to capture anything in this tour that would have a shorter shelf life than maybe 2 years. So, and also remember, this is a prototype. So a lot of Steve's instruction isn't in here, but what he meant to put in here doesn't change because it's the principles behind processes and systems. So Delta changes enough every day that we can't capture that sort of material.
Okay, there's a question in the back and then.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. Thank you for the interesting insights and the interesting presentation. My question is, what is the purpose so far as of the whole VR experience or the 330-degree project? So far as I understand, it was like COVID made it impossible to visit the site. But is it just to view the area? But what is the learning goal? What is the outcome you try to achieve competency-wise? That's what I asked myself the whole time.
I have this. Hang on, because I wanted Steve to answer this question.
I think part of the answer is in the title of the presentation. And this is why we brought the VR goggles, is it's very hard to see on the screen what we're talking about with scale. But the scale is essential to the learning environment. So, and zero failure and scale are very tricky to pull off. So if you're in the VR environment, for one thing, it's a better experience as a student. And I can tell you, having just finished this program, the EMBA students have very high expectations when it comes to experiential learning. So that was one big point behind that. But Stephanie.
Yeah. From the professor's perspective, instructionally related to his class, the goals are to create a virtual tool that shows the unbelievable scale, exposes the user to the powerful positive role of culture and the zero failure environment, to the process limiting impact of bottlenecks in a working shop. So we're looking at applying the concepts that they're reading in class on paper to a real life scenario that they can be immersed in. An impact of complexity on operations. So there is that challenge. I mean, it's a really good question because there is that challenge of, yes, this is a lot of flash. This is really cool. This is VR. This is goggles. But what is the impact on teaching and learning? This is why this is in the experimentation zone, right? Because we still have to find that out. We hope that it's successful, and we will integrate measures for success when we deploy this with students and do more testing. But yeah, that's a really good question. We have some idea of, we need to gather feedback from students and we need to gather data, but without a finished product, we have our learning goals and we have the concept of, is VR going to impact teaching and learning? But that's what we're all here to discover, right? There hasn't been very many examples out there of teaching using a physical place in a business school. So we're doing it first, right? Like this is a big undertaking.
There's a real simple answer to that, and that is in instructional design, there's something called formative development and formative evaluation, and that's where you are. That's simple as that. We don't know, but it's certainly going to serve a lot of things. What I did want to ask, though, and it followed up, you had mentioned that one part of the building, another hangar was repurposed at one point, or you switched from paint to maintenance and all of that. And I imagine there are, I worked with Delta for a while myself. There's a lot of things that change. And I know you want to have at least a 2-year shelf life, but I'd like to know more about that. It's really an interesting point because whenever I've developed instruction, and what the learner is looking at is not exactly what they, you can't really make assumptions that they're going to generalize it or say, well, it used to be over here, but now it's over here, that kind of thing.
I'll just say really quickly from my perspective, your question leads right into where we start branching off into the different purposes for this, because the design will be very different. So because things get repurposed, that falls more into what Delta would use this tour for. What Steve is going to use this tour for is to show examples of processes and systems. So it's such a different direction. It will be a different deliverable tool.
Got it.
We're actually using it in continuous improvement training, looking at bottlenecks, workflow, Kaizen, Kanbans, and showing, especially in our new engine shops, how we're applying that and how it's making a difference.
We did something similar years ago at General Motors.
Nothing is new under the sun. Yeah.
Okay. The last one? Last.
I just asked myself if there is an idea to take this project even further, to let students take a process-orientated approach. On my view, in Germany, there are some schools that did better than colleges in room design, for example. They was able to design in VR special rooms and redesign rooms. And I asked myself, for this thing, it would be really interesting to optimize processes or optimize the room, and this would be more interesting than 360-degree photos. But if you take this as the first step, I thought that then it's really interesting because you can take it even further. That was my thought process, and I thought maybe you had that in mind.
We do. We've talked about that internally. Is what are the possibilities, and that was one of them. Yeah.
So I'm gonna. If you saw Rishika and Jackie speak earlier, another one of our Innovation Zone projects had filmed real people, and you respond and you see another of a choice of clips. So you can see in that and in this the limitation of using real world imagery. And I think what you're talking about is where we need to branch off between computer designed imagery, which is of course, very exciting. A lot of different possibilities there and a lot more work that we didn't have time to do.
Yeah.
I don't want an answer, but what was the budget?
Okay, so I think we can close this session. Thank you so much for your contribution.